Talk to us first and foremost about what you made of this discussion about the fear of propaganda, about misinformation being used within AI. Because also on the flip side, there's a lot of positives, the way in which you can actually uncover who's behind certain cyber attacks, at least, too.
Yeah, so large language models are one of the most exciting developments in the last few years. These are models that have been trained pretty much on everything that's been written down, everything that's on a web page. The result of that is that they have enormous fluency. You can ask ChatGPT to write a little poem or a story, and it'll do an amazing job. It doesn't know right from wrong or truth from falsehood. So, the word that we use for that is hallucinate. But it is incredibly prolific. I think of these large language models as savants. They can say very convincing things. They can say things in the voice of somebody, like you're writing, if you give it enough of a sample. So it's not surprising, obviously, that they can be used for propaganda or misinformation. That's a problem that we face online anyway. Whenever I see something, I always look to see, well, is this from Bloomberg? Is this reputable? So I think those kinds of risks are going to go up, but I think there's also a lot of positive potential that come from these models.
Sridhar, what's interesting is we went to our own audience earlier in the day using Twitter, a poll, and we asked them, look, do these sorts of reports about the ability to incite propaganda put you off from using ChatGPT? Interestingly, most still say, look, they're going to be continuing to use it despite these reports. But about 20% said, no way, I'm not going to be using it. From your perspective, is this where you step in? Because one of the fixes, perhaps, that Neeva has for ChatGPT is by allowing us to know what the sourcing of the information is that we're reading.
Yeah, that was one of our big goals. We wanted to integrate the fluency of these large language models into search. Right now, search is pretty hard. You put in a keyword, you have to go click on a link, figure out what's there, and then come back, maybe go somewhere else. So we wanted the fluent answers of ChatGPT, but we wanted to be done in an authentic way. So we set out to make sure that every sentence we wrote had its source clearly put there. So there's a citation. We also wanted to make sure that we could take into account real-time information. This is what we launched earlier last week, and it's been exceptionally well received because two of the biggest problems that ChatGPT has old information, it sort of hallucinates or makes up fact, or addressed to a large degree by our ability to combine a search engine, which is all about finding you authentic, believable information, with the fluency of a large language model. So we are at the very much the beginning inning of how large language models are going to be integrated into various functions, including search engines. So they can be put to very, very positive use, just like the internet. The internet is great for finding things, but obviously a lot of misinformation and bad things also happen. So we should think of these language models as being the same way. It's a tool.
Hey, Sridhar, we're so grateful for you joining us from Munich, Germany. You're attending DLD. I know you're surrounded by people who understand the underlying technology, but there are so many people out there that do not. And I know that it's not straightforward, but could you try and explain to our audience what large language models are in layman's terms? How do they work?
Yeah, so language models understand the structure of how we write and speak. And you should really think of them as this intermediary, just like a keyboard takes the strokes that you put on it and produces sentences. These language models can take your input, but they're able to respond back to you with writings of their own because they've been trained on so much text. But these writings by themselves, don't always have meaning. If you ask it to write a poem, sure, it'll write a poem, it'll be fun. On the other hand, it might not know true from false, or what is a fact and what is believable and things like that. So this technology is very much developing. But right now, you should think of this the same way you think of any interface or like an interpreter that can listen to you in English and translate it into German. They have that kind of a skill, but they need to be augmented with other things from real world to be truly useful. And those things are going to come up.
Sridhar, we're talking about ChatGPT for a reason, right? Because of the news cycle, Bloomberg reporting that Microsoft is looking at investing maybe $10 billion into OpenAI and ChatGPT over a series of years. And it seems like, you know, the common sense conclusion is that they would use ChatGPT to improve Bing as a search engine, make it more competitive against Google. As somebody that operates in search, you know, what's your read on that piece of news?
Absolutely. You know, Bing is clearly a number 2 in the search space, and they want to leapfrog over, you know, just like we want to leapfrog over and create a better search experience. It absolutely makes sense that Microsoft would want to do that. But we should remember that Microsoft's actually a juggernaut in things like work communication, personal communication. And these language models are going to be helping anytime we write an email, anytime we want to consume a document or a web page. So the use cases for these language models are truly massive.
Yeah.
And clearly, Microsoft's being very smart by making a big early bet in this space.
Sridhar, you make bets for a living too. You're a venture partner at Greylock, as well as, of course, co-founder of this business, Neeva. Talk to us about where the money is being made in your business. If you're not going to have ads, and if we're trying to visualize what a language format would be in terms of search that gives you a perfect answer and not a load of links to click on, what's the money spinner here?
Well, so this is where it actually gets really exciting for Neeva, because we are a subscription search engine. We set out to create a search engine that was all about you, the user. And we have a freemium model. You know, people pay for premium features like being able to connect their email or work Slack to them. So our model is perfectly aligned. I can imagine a scenario in which, yes, there is a chat-like interface, but some of the sentences are sponsored maybe. But I think the one answer format, it doesn't really jive all that well with advertising. But there'll be other cases. You know, people are going to use these models to create like personalized advertising for each and every one of us. So you're going to lose some, but there are other places where you're going to win as well in advertising.